طيب بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أما بعد. Let's get started tonight بإذن. If there are any questions for the Khalid.
The question is, there's a hadith, I believe it's in Muslim, I don't remember the exact wording of the hadith, but it was something like this. There was a blind man who had a female slave that she gave birth to a child, and she was saying some disrespectful things about the Prophet, and the blind man told her to stop, and she kept doing it, and then eventually he killed her. And then when the Prophet heard about this, he said that her blood was lawful. And then they have some people that say nowadays they say, I mean in today's day they say that that's a proof that killing people that disrespect the Prophet, that draw pictures of him and stuff like that is permissible. What's your
Question says, Hadith that I believe is in Sahih Muslim with regards to a woman who was disrespecting and reviling the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. She was pregnant, she gave birth. After she gave birth, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam allowed her blood to be spilt, allowed her to be put to death, etc. Does this prove that it's permissible for those who are mocking and ridiculing the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, for us to kill them, etc.? What do you say about this? First and foremost, is Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. He has a book. He has a book that he wrote on the topic of slandering the messenger and reviling the messenger. As-Sarim al-Maslul ala Shatim al-Rasul. He wrote a book called The Unsheathed Sword on the one who slanders the messenger, in which he discussed in detail the rulings of mocking and slandering the Prophet of Islam. Can they make tawbah? Are they to be executed? Is it apostasy? Is it kufr akbar, etc.? What's important is we got to understand something, brothers and sisters, and that is just because everything is permissible doesn't mean it's advisable. And just because something is advisable, it seems like a good idea or to work, doesn't mean it's permissible. So we have to understand that there are many rules of Islam, not all, but many, that we may not be able to implement and practice properly because of the nature of our lifestyles. The nature of our lifestyles and the importance of politics in Islam. And how there are many rulings of Islam, not all, but many, which cannot be properly understood and properly implemented without the proper political atmosphere of concept of community, the concept of state, concept of majority, concept of financial independence, etc. Riba. The concept of riba is supposed to go along with the other parts of the Islamic financial system. The concept of al-bara wal-wala, hating and loving, the kuffar, the Muslims, jihad fi sabilillah, many things like this can't be understood properly, can't be implemented properly because of how we live, in which we are the minority, in which we are at the mercy of the non-Muslims. We get sick, we go to their hospitals. We get into a problem, we call their military. And the list goes on. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The izzah is supposed to be for Allah, it's supposed to be for His Messenger, and it's supposed to be for the faithful. Alright? So just because a person becomes an apostate, or a person were already kuffar and they mocked the Prophet and they disrespected Islam, whatever the case, doesn't mean that it's always the best thing, or the correct thing, or even the possible thing to do. What will cause, or what will be a cause, or will be an effect of that? What will happen? What will take place? What will be the backlash and the ricochet? So we have to be mindful of that. And you don't even have to get into the sticky issue of is it permissible or not? Can they be killed or not? That's not, you don't have to get into that. Just the lifestyle we live. When this war begins and takes place, where is the war going to take place? Who are going to be the people that are going to suffer from this war? Where are we living? Is this the land of the Muslims clearly cut? And then the kuffar, or the kuffar with the Muslims mixing and the Muslims being a minority, the weakest, lowest, basest, meanest. You have to take all of this into consideration, regardless whether it's permissible or not. Huh? And Allah knows best.
Question from online. Initials AM from Springfield, Virginia. Is the name Tawheed appropriate?
Question says, is the name Tawheed appropriate? The general rule the people of knowledge say or mention is that you're allowed to name yourself or your children whatever you want, as long as it doesn't clash with the authentic sunnah, names that are prohibited to be used in the sunnah or the general meaning. Now, some people may say, well, Tawheed is Islam, you can't name yourself, you shouldn't name yourself. Can't necessarily say that specifically. If you feel like it's best not to have that name, not to use that name, but to specifically use it, and they say you can't have the name like Islam, you can't have the name Ramadan, you can't have the name Tawheed. To say that you can't, I won't say that. Having the name Jibreel, you can't have the name Jibreel. The Salaf never named their children Jibreel. That doesn't mean it's haram. And Allah knows best.
Initials OR from Springfield, Virginia. Assalamu alaikum mufti. May Allah reward your efforts. Can you pray with your shoes on?
Question says, can you pray with your shoes on? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah accept it from you as well. Yes, you can pray with your shoes on. And the proof that you can pray with your shoes on is nothing more than the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, which has been reported in such a large number of hadiths, which the Prophet prayed with his shoes on and with his shoes off. There's nothing wrong with praying with your shoes on. As far as the culture of the Muslims today, Middle Eastern culture, Somalian culture, the greatest insult is to walk into someone's house with your shoes on, to step on their carpet with your shoes on. That's fine and that's peachy. But that's not the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. As long as the shoes are clean, there's nothing wrong with praying with your shoes on. Going to a public area or a masjid in which they don't allow shoes to be worn, etc. Obviously, you don't want to cause a fitna, as we just said. Just because it's permissible or the sunnah doesn't mean it's the best thing to do in the time and in the place and in the scenario, causing a greater harm. But the bottom line is that it's permissible to pray with your shoes on, and it only makes sense for a person to pray with his shoes on. It only makes sense for it to be permissible. For salat to be the most beloved physical deed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for the salat to be made traveling, at home, sick, standing, lying on your side, jihad fi sabilillah, it only makes sense for salat to be such an integral part of the Muslim's life, for him to have the liberty of doing it wearing shoes. It only makes sense. If you think about it, the concept of something that is very important to you, and it's a major part of your life. It's a big possibility that you have to be trained in that thing, in that art or that skill, when you're sleeping, when you're up, because it can happen anytime, like a firefighter. They're trained to be ready, to be in gear. They're trained to go and look after an emergency within a number of seconds, a number of minutes. It can happen anytime. Anytime there can be a fire. Something can explode, something catch on fire, and electricity, whatever the case may be. So they're always trained to be ready and to be in gear. It makes no sense for someone to say firefighters shouldn't be on call at 3 a.m. Firefighters, they shouldn't be on call on the weekends. Firefighters, they shouldn't have no training. We shouldn't spend the taxpayers' money, the government's money, to train firefighters in the summertime when people aren't going to school. No, that's a waste. No, because fires happen. Fires in inner city with technology, with energy, is an integral part of life. So it only makes sense for the firefighter to always be on standby and to always be ready to address a fire. And then if fires weren't as dangerous, weren't as important, weren't as likely to happen, then one can say it's no need to receive this type of training. It's no need to have the firefighters alert when there are not as many people in the city, because it's not going to happen that much. But we're talking about salah, prayer, which is the backbone of Islam, the vertebrae of Islam. And a good part of my life is done and performed wearing shoes. Walking, traveling, driving, getting on a plane, wearing shoes, wearing boots. It's raining outside, it's snowing outside. It only makes sense for there to be rulings pertaining to shoes. It makes no sense. You can't pray in shoes. What if you do if you work outside? If it's raining outside, money outside, how many continents, how many countries in which there's a rainy season, in which the ground is scorching hot? It makes no sense. So the people who say that you cannot pray in shoes, not only are they against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, but they're against reality. They're not living in a real practical world. And Allah knows best.
Sophia Jawara from Maryland. Assalamu alaikum. What is the role of attending a mixed class for learning tajweed if it's the only class around and affordable? Barakallahu feek.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fikum barakallah. If you don't feel comfortable, then don't go to the class. I would advise you, specifically, sister, not to go to the class because you don't feel comfortable. Learn tajweed online. Read a book on tajweed. Wait, make dua, relocate, find a place in which you can find a sister that can teach you tajweed without being free mixed with brothers. As far as if you feel that the tajweed is a necessity and it's a mandatory science to learn, or you really, really want to learn, it's going to help your deen, and you know that you go to the masjid with a purpose, not to be seen, not to mix, but this is the only resource available, or the imam or the brother or the sister teaching the class, this is their understanding, because it's not agreed upon by all of the ulama of Islam every aspect of free mixing. That's a mistake. Every scholar doesn't agree that this is the haram free mixing. Every scholar doesn't agree that this is permissible free mixing. So the people have different understandings. And they have different backgrounds. They have different types of Islamic scholarship, which you have to respect. So if you don't feel that it's a big thing, and you're going there with a proper intention, with a purpose, A, B, C, minding my business, I take my class, I go home, I avoid this, I avoid that, then that's one thing. But if you feel that it's haram, and it's a bad thing, and it's an issue, then don't go. Because it's only going to end up bad for you. But if you don't feel that it's a problem, you're just undoubtful, or you're unsure, you're doubtful about it, and they have their understanding of the permissibility of having a class mixed with men and women for this reason or that reason, and you can go and you can benefit, mind your business, and you have your agenda of learning and staying focused and going home, inshallah, la bas. What's important is many people, they go to a class and they have the most important part of the class missing. That's to learn. Many people, they go to the class, the speaker, the masjid, the brother, the association, and they lose focus on the actual core, the kernel, and that is the knowledge that's being presented. Or vice versa. A person really doesn't have a lot of knowledge, never studied formally, is a person who just quacks, just talks and rants, talking about people, talking about this, talking about that. He's only giving a class through association. We know what this means? Is that if you weren't associated with these people and you weren't popular and in this group or this clan, you would have no value. You have no ilm, no credentials, no formal, nothing. And then there's someone that's not a part of this association or this group or this clan, and they have credentials on and off paper. These are my credentials on paper, and these are my credentials off of paper. I can speak, I can teach, I have knowledge, whether I'm with you or whether I'm not with you. So there are many people that don't have the proper qualifications of knowledge, and the people that get caught up with the personality. Oh, Brother Fulan's doing a class, so I'm going to go. Brother Fulan's website, these people, but the actual knowledge is void or very weak, it's diluted, So the main focus of the class is to benefit, is to learn. That's primary. Is it important to know who the person is, where you're taking your knowledge from? No question about that. No one is different on that. Allahu Alam.
Initials MZU from Birmingham, UK. Is it allowed to listen to Quran at work to drown out the sound of the music they play?
Listening to the Quran at work to drown out the sound of the music that they play. It depends on what you mean by drown out. If the music isn't that loud and the Quran is going to be played loud enough with your headphones or your power beats or wireless or whatever you're using, then that's one thing. But if the music and the Quran, the recitation of the Quran, if it's a contest, which one is louder, you can still hear it. That's something in which, should the Quran be used like that? Is that respecting the Quran? Should you be working in a place in which they're playing music and you believe that music is haram to listen to? What's important is, as long as the music isn't that loud and the Quran is clearly much louder and it blocks it out and you can focus on your job, you can fulfill the amana of your employer, then inshallah ta'ala, hopefully there's nothing wrong with that. And Allah knows best.
Hamid Baig from Brampton, Ontario. What is the difference between, says here, you put an alif and the word and the letters ha and lam. That and ha, like the beginning of a word, I guess. Like
Clear. Yeah, in most cases, it's going to be the same. أهذا كتابك؟ هل هذا كتابك? In most cases, it's going to be the same. Perhaps there may be a subtle difference when used in the Quran. The Hamza, Istifham, and Nahal. But that's a deeper issue with regards to the balagha of the Quran. Certain sciences or certain things are specific to the Quran and its miraculous eloquence. Even though in the Arabic language they could be the same, or they could be synonymous in most cases. Wallahu alam.
Initials AY from West London. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. If an individual smokes weed less than 30 days prior to Ramadan, will his fast be accepted?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If someone smokes weed within a 30-day time span, more or less, before Ramadan, will their fast be accepted? We don't know whose fast will be accepted. We don't know that. Allah has taught us, the Prophet has taught us how to determine when the fasting is valid. Sahih. Fasting has conditions. Fasting has prerequisites. Fasting has mandatory acts. Fasting has pillars. There are mubtilat, things which nullify one's fast. Mufsidat as-sawm, nawaqid as-sawm. That's what we know for sure. Is that he who prays facing the Qibla on time with the proper condition, recites this, bows, so on and so forth, the prayer is valid. Did Allah accept it from him? We don't know. We hope for the best. We pray that Allah will accept our ibadah from us. We ask Allah, taqabbal minna, taqabbal minni, oh Allah, accept from us, accept from me. That's the dua that you make. That's what Ibrahim alayhi salam, he made that dua. Taqabbal dua, and accept my dua. But we don't know for sure. There are signs that something has been accepted, and there are signs for us to know that inshallah that the dua has been fruitful, or the worship has been fruitful. But we don't know for sure what is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? As far as is it valid, then if a person inshallah ta'ala isn't intoxicated, I don't think a person will be intoxicated for a very long time by smoking weed. And inshallah ta'ala he fulfills the rest of the conditions of fasting and the pillars, etc., then the fasting will be valid. Okay? What's important is that if a person's mind is there, inshallah ta'ala, he doesn't have to worry about that. If he's drunk or intoxicated or high, perhaps that's a different story. What's important is try your best in the month of Ramadan to kick the bad habits to the curb. And if you don't have enough strength to kick them to the curb, then at least have enough strength, bi'idhnillah, to control them. Control them. You ever see somebody walk down the street with a really strong dog on a leash? The dog is strong. The dog is pulling them. But the dog isn't loose. It's still relatively restrained. They tighten the leash a little bit. Have some control over your desires. To at least respect the fasting. Not during Ramadan. Or if I'm not strong enough, at least not during the daytime. And then bi'idhnillah you work on it piece by piece, step by step, seeking Allah's help. And sweating it out and suffering, cold turkeying it out. Bi'idhnillah ta'ala, in due time, you'll be able to leave off that bad habit, inshallah ta'ala, with Allah's help.
Next question is from Lutfi. We'll skip it.
Fadl, go ahead. Labas.
Love Sheikh Sensei. Good to see you back and hope the disciples in class are well. What are some advices you can give to prepare ourselves before Ramadan?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu fiqh, akhil aziz. May Allah reward you well and bless you. Keep you firm upon the deen. Everyone is well, walillah alhamd. Hopefully all the disciples worldwide are well, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. As far as some pieces of advice, then the first piece of advice is to save money. And the second piece of advice is to work more. Nothing to do with this dua, this spirituality, worldly, material things. That's the first piece of practical advice. The more money that you save before Ramadan, inshallah, the less that you have to work during Ramadan. The more money you have for sadaqah, the more money you have to entertain iftar, the more money you have to support suhoor, the more money that you have to make umrah in Ramadan, and to really squeeze, Ramadan out of all of its juicy benefits. Bidnai subhanahu wa ta'ala, So that's the best piece of advice, is to work extra and to save more. That way you can have more smooth sailing in Ramadan, bidnai ta'ala. And the people of knowledge, they mention this with regards to saving money to give more sadaqah in Ramadan. And the general principle is that good deeds are multiplied. The reward of good deeds are multiplied during virtuous, noble times. And what time could be more virtuous and more noble than the month of Ramadan, in which the Quran was sent down? So I think you should work on that, inshallah. Inshallah ta'ala, with the time that remains. And Allah knows best.
Initials ZM from Birmingham, UK. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Can I sell a Bible to customers at a shop I don't own?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you sell a Bible to customers?
At a shop that he doesn't own.
At a shop, you shouldn't sell the Bible to anyone. You shouldn't sell the Bible. Unless it's someone who's an expert Muslim scholar, or an expert student of knowledge who can read the Bible for the purposes of da'wah, the purposes of affirming what's true and presenting that to the non-Muslims and showing them the consistencies with the Quran, etc., and for the purpose of refuting the things that have been added. Okay? We have to be mindful of this. The Bible, do the Christians even consider the Bible the word of God? 100%. Do they even believe that? They themselves acknowledge what's been added, what's been taken out, what's been lost, what has been translated from a language they're unsure of, etc. So I wouldn't tell you to sell that to anyone. And Allah knows best.
Initials MA from UK Midlands. Can you share some light on the rocking while reading Quran?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Can I share or shed light on rocking while reading the Quran? That which I have read from the people of knowledge is that it's a cultural norm. The Lajna Da'ima was asked about this, and they said it's a cultural norm. If you want to rock, you can rock. If you don't want to rock, don't rock. And it doesn't necessarily have to be ibadah. It's not necessarily a bid'ah. But they say it's a norm to help someone concentrate, to help someone focus, and to get one into the rhythm or the mood of memorizing, and to lessen the hardship of hifd. So if you do it with that purpose and that intention, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully there's nothing wrong with it. If you do it saying it is the sunnah and rocking it as an ajr and some type of Sufism or this and that, that's totally a different story, obviously, which is going to lead you to bid'ah. Wallahu alam.
What about rocking in salah?
La, abadan. وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. Staying in front of Allah in submission and stillness. And many brothers, they do this. You'll find them doing it. Some rock and some do it subtly. You'll feel them. La, abadan. Now, if you have a problem with balance, or someone is old or standing on their feet for a while, it's tarawih or something like that, that's one thing. But intentionally rocking and moving, no. Because the salah, nothing about the salah is cultural. The salah is all spiritual. There is no cultural norm in salah, except for one's clothes. This is a vest that I have on. I like the color black. Black is one of my favorite colors to wear. That's nothing to do with the modality of the prayer. Wallahu alam.
Initials OS from USA. Didn't say the city. This is Jason from London, UK. Can we cut ties with hostile family members who slander and verbally abuse us? Is it a sin to stop talking to them? And what should we advise those who are being slandered?
Don't cut your ties with those who slander you. I know it's easier said than done, but try your best to keep ties with them. Keeping ties with your family member doesn't mean that you have to be their best friend. It doesn't mean that you have to sit and drink tea and biscuits with them. You can send them a text message, an email, a letter, a gift in the mail. You can send them some money. You don't have to say anything to them, this and that. You can send them monetary support. There are many ways of keeping ties with your family and helping your family, especially if they're abusive and especially if they're nasty, if they're venomous. All right? Some people you can't talk to, you can't have a conversation with. They're just too disrespectful to you as a person, or you marry someone outside of your race, or whatever the case is. But it doesn't mean that you can now have the ability to cut them off 100%, boycott them, talk, don't, nah, nah, nah. You don't do that. Don't do that. And perhaps by you being kind to them will be means of their hearts being softened. And in most cases, people that are slandering you or speaking ill of people because they're religious or whatever the case, in most cases, they're people that need therapy. They're people that have been berated and damaged. They're missing something. Something happened to them. Something took place, huh? In most cases, you go somewhere, there's a woman that you marry, for example. She's religious, the mother, the father, but the brother or the sister is totally non-religious. He doesn't like religious people. You come in the house with a beard, with a thobe, he doesn't really like you that much. In most cases, something happened to him that turned him off with religious people. Something happened to him. He was betrayed. He found someone that was a fake. So something happened that made him have that derogatory stance towards religious people. So by you just cutting him off and not talking to him 100%, is that going to help him? Or is that going to, what is that going to do? Then obviously someone's just totally disrespectful, outward, in your face, that's a different story because that may lead to physicalities. Wallahu alam.
Initials AA from Fayetteville, Arizona. Assalamu alaikum. Surah Ibrahim, ayah 41. Who's making the supplication? In English, our Lord, forgive me and my parents and the believers the day the account is established.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. The asl is that it's Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's not going to be someone else making dua unless it's proven. Unless there is a need or necessity from the context. It's going to be Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam making that dua. Whether it's in Surah Al-Baqarah or Surah Ibrahim or any other surah in which Allah Azza wa Jal is speaking on behalf of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Wallahu alam.
Initials AF from New York, New York. Assalamu alaikum. My question is it permissible to use spermicide as a form of birth control?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The concept is that Islam supports and promotes abundant childbirth, as the authentic Sunnah teaches us. However, it is permissible to use certain means of contraceptives, certain means in certain times, as long as it's known by the husband and wife. Whatever that means is, as long as it doesn't do harm to the body, and as long as it isn't something which is permanent, unless there is a medical necessity. So whatever that means or that practice is, as long as it isn't harmful, as long as it isn't something which is detrimental to the body, something which is of permanent effect, then it can be used with those conditions and in that light. Wallahu alam.
Initials KI from Bucks, UK. Is non-surgical rhinoplasty allowed?
I don't know what that is. Could you please explain and teach me what that is? And perhaps I can shed some light on it from an Islamic standpoint. Jazakallahu khairan.
Initials MA from UK Midlands. Can you get married or move to another place while having a Riba loan?
With regards to getting a Riba loan, then that's a long discussion, brothers and sisters, the concept of Riba in 2018. Not just in the Western part of the world, but the world as a whole. The modern banking system, central banking system. Debit cards, credit cards, Western Union, transferring money. The hadith that says the time will come in which riba will become widespread, in which no one will be free from its dust. If you don't have the riba and eat from it, the dust will fall on you and touch you one way or another. The people of knowledge, they say this hadith is not necessarily authentic, but they say the meaning is authentic. And it's very scary. Which one of us doesn't have some type of connection or relation to riba? On one scale or another, wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. So with that being said, common sense would tell us that we have to try our best to limit our dealings with riba. And that which is an absolute must, that which is a very big hardship and it's a tight squeeze and difficult not to have a debit card, not to do this, not to have this insured, not to have a driver's license, etc. So insurance, paying for this type of insurance, we ask Allah to forgive us therefore. As far as taking a huge loan, and it isn't a necessity, you don't need a thing, or you can take a loan from other permissible means without having to pay back with the interest, then there's no excuse for you taking that riba loan. A necessity, a need, a major hardship, different story. Something that's based off of greed, impatience, based off of presupposed necessity, totally different story. Whether it's getting married, going to school, or whatever that thing is. Wallahu alam.
Initials MZU from Birmingham, UK. Is it correct to refer to oneself by one's kunya? Example, I am Abu Fulan. Or do you tell people your name and then people call you by your kunya?
It depends on how you're speaking and how well you're known. If people know you as Abu Abdurrahman, you're known by that, you say, who is it? It's Abu Abdurrahman. Or you text, Assalamu, this is brother Abu Abdurrahman. People know you by that, it's one thing. If you're writing a book and you say, Qala Abu Abdurrahman, Qala Abu Umar, as the ulama of the past would do, Qala Abu Isa, perhaps. But as far as just saying it and calling yourself such and such, Abu such and such, giving yourself that type of honorific respect or title, whatever, that's something perhaps one should stay away from. To say it's haram, I can't say that. It's Abu Ramla speaking to you. Can't say that. But the concept, or the main concept, or one of the main concepts of the kunya is for someone else speaking to you, giving you that affection, that love, and that respect. And Allah knows best.
Wyatt Elf in Camden, New Jersey. What is said for a person who re-wets their hands after wiping the head and before wiping the ears? Would this be a bid'ah?
Hopefully it's not a bid'ah. The hadith says, Al-udhunani min al-ra's, that ears follow the head. That hadith is not authentic. Hadith al-udhunani min al-ra's is not sahih. Hadith Abu Umama and Sunan Abi Majah. Some of the people of knowledge hold the view that it's authentic, but it's not. But the meaning of it is correct. And some of the ulama, they took that opinion, that the udhunan, the ears, are from the head. Meaning that the ears are to be wiped gently and not scrubbed. Or the same water applies to the ears from the head. As far as another view or another madhab regarding taking new water for the ears and hadiths that support that, even if they're not authentic as well, you can't necessarily say that it's a bid'ah, especially if they're following those teachings. What's important is we have to understand something. And that is, we have a clash of culture, of race, of age, and of class living in America or the UK. We have a Muslim who's indigenous American. He accepted Islam, reverted to Islam, converted, or whatever you wish to word it. We have a Muslim who comes from Bangladesh, in which Islam has been in his family for hundreds of years. We have a Muslim who isn't educated, but they speak Arabic and they understand Arabic. وَهَكَذَا. They come from a land in which knowledge is widespread and prevalent. It's a mixing pot. So the book that you were taught will do from the dawah that you accepted, the Islam that you came upon, is totally different than him. Night and day. So if you guys can't talk and conversate and empty the cups, you ask him, he asks you. You learn, this is what I learned in my country, this is what I've been taught. I never even knew that was even a hadith. And I've been Muslim for all of these years. This is a reality. You're on the airplane, this is a reality. Some Muslims are Muslim just by name. They've inherited the deen, that's it. No different than Christians. وَلَيَضُ بِاللَّهِ. And they're totally unaware. And a person who used to be a Christian or a Jew or a 5%er, or whatever the case may be, accepting Islam, he may know more about Islam than the one who's been Muslim for years. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, فَرُبَّ مُبَلِّغٍ أَوْ أَعْلَهُ مِنْ سَامِعٍ. He says perhaps one who receives the information secondhand may have more knowledge of the information than the one who received it firsthand. You may find a revert Muslim who may have more knowledge than someone who comes from another land. Or you may find a brother who's a taxi cab driver, who's a layman, he has a shaven beard, his pants are beneath his ankles. He may have more fiqh than someone who studied overseas. He may have a stronger grasp of the Arabic language than someone who studied overseas. And you have more common sense. So it's a melting pot. So everyone has to respect each other, has to humble themselves, and go to one authentic source. If you have proof and evidence that wiping the ears with new water is what you should do or is permissible, fuck them. And if that's just a teaching, someone you was taught, then accept that which is authentic and correct. What's important is the ulama do not agree on every single issue in wudu. They do not agree. There's no ijma on every issue. And oftentimes people there are zealous, they're happy, and they force their view thinking that it's ijma, and there's no ijma. So that's my advice on this situation, or any other issue of salah, of hijab, of the niqab, etc. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. This is all of the time that we have tonight for our Q&A session. Until the next episode.